Dear Ambassador Gold, dear Dory, dear international guests, dear Chaya and Aruba, dear friends, Boker Tov v'bruchim habayim. Forgive me, please, that I gave you the shallow promise 1 year ago in the Sykes-Picot conference to welcome you with some more sentences in proper Hebrew. You can see even Germans are not as reliable anymore as they used to be. And also, when I'm already excusing myself, excuse my English. As it is not my mother tongue, my relation to English is somewhat similar to my relation to my wife. I love her, but I can't control her all the time, so also please forgive me. You are German. Oh, oops. You are German. Why in the world is that your business? The Balfour Declaration. What has it to do with you, and why are you, as a German institution, poking your long and curious German nose into that? Why German speakers instead of more British speakers, which would be more appropriate? Why is there no Palestinian speaker? Why this issue? Why are you not dealing with the future instead of dealing with an incident that happened 100 years ago? Why do you celebrate an event? So forth and so on. I could go on like this for at least half an hour. These are just a couple of questions and complaints we in fact received as we are the co-organizers and co-hosts of this conference. Some of these question marks are unjustified, some are justified and deserve an immediate answer. Others will be simply answered by the event as such. But it is also a sign of the relevance of this event that these questions pop up. In the life of an institution like the Adenauer-Stiftung, you will find events and events. Some are just routine, some are extraordinary. I thus have the pleasure and the honor to welcome you on behalf of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung to this, that at least we regard to be an extraordinary conference. Saying this also gives me the very welcomed opportunity to thank our long-standing partner, the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, for this joint event and for valuable and long-standing cooperation we are having. A big Toda Rabbah goes to you, dear Dory, but also very much to Chaya and Ahuva. I think that we succeeded to establish a really trustful partnership, and let me give you a little surprise. We could celebrate our 25th anniversary. So please regard this to be the anniversary conference of our very valued partnership. Without revealing well-kept secrets, we had some internal discussion if this particular topic would raise enough interest. But the level of your participation, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that we had more applicants for participation in this conference than seats we can offer, shows that it is obviously worth to deal with this historical issue. We know that there is significant and though competing events not very far from here, and the Jerusalem Post already alluded to that yesterday. The J-Post had the kindness to call the lineup of our conference impressive. Thus, another big Toda Rabbah has to be awarded to our guest speakers today. I greet all of you equally warm, whether you are Moshe Arens, not yet here, Daniel Taub, the wonderful Ruth Lapidot, my friend Yossi Kupperwasser, or whoever. But I hope that you will forgive me that I will extend a very special welcome to our German guest, namely to Professor Julius Schöps, the director and founding father of the Moses Mendelssohn Center of European Jewish Studies at Potsdam University, one of the leading German Judaists and historians. And later on, we can greet the Ambassador of Germany to Israel, His Excellency Ambassador Clemens von Götze. Allow me some remarks referring to the issue. How can we see the situation today? What determines our look at the Balfour Declaration? Was it the expected redemption, or was it damnation? Let me, as we are not only looking at 100 years Balfour Declaration, but also at 120 years World Zionist Congress, answer that question by referring to a wonderful anecdote about Theodor Herzl. that regardless if the story is true or not, it is at least a beautiful and telling story. Herzl visited on a regular basis the Jewish communities in Eastern Europe, and doing so he was always under some significant time pressure. During one of those visits, he approached the rabbi of the shtetl, shouting out in a haste, "Rabbi, in one word, just in one word, how's the situation here?" The rabbi hesitates for a moment, but then answers, "Good." Herzl is obviously unhappy with that answer and asks, "Well, if you would have two words." The rabbi stares at him and says, "Not good." These two categories, good or not good, black or white, I think are indeed, to be serious again, those who you will always find when this declaration is being discussed. Well, a lot of people are talking about obstacles to peace. There are indeed many, and I'm not tired to give you another one. Besides the ones you already know, and I'm serious, this obstacle to peace is simplification. Simplification and superficiality with a clear political intention. This simplification leads to a polarization. Either the declaration is being portrayed to be the root of all evil, the only reason for violence in the Middle East, the ignition of the conflict, the signed death warrant for an independent Palestinian state, or it is uncritically being raised to the skies and overly interpreted and almost sanctified. The verbalized fulfillment of the divine promise to the chosen people. Just some days ago, one of the most leftist papers in Germany, the Neues Deutschland, published an article about the Balfour Declaration, stating the following: "It is only and simply the British government and the declaration," sorry, my British friends, "that planted the seeds of hate, hostility, and violence and is hindering peace until the present day. The shadow of Lord Balfour is long." End of quote. One can also easily find similar statements on the other side, even denying the mere existence of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian identity. Nobody would ever deny that the Balfour Declaration had an enormous impact until today. It was no more than a short, vague letter without any binding legal status, despite the fact that it wasn't even debated in the British Parliament, but its consequences were both profound and pervasive. Even though it completely transformed the position of the fledgling Zionist movement, it seems at least remarkable, if not awkward, what some people can read out of the meager 67 words that comprise the letter of Britain's Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour being sent to Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild as the figurehead of the Jewish community. I already stated last year when we discussed the impact of Sykes-Picot that we should not act like pathologists who are forced to look at the dead body, specifically at the failure or performance of one organ, looking at it very isolated. We should look at the Balfour Declaration as it is. First and foremost, a historic event, being just a link in a chain of events, like the, for instance, not less important Sanremo conference. Yet, of course, it is a decisive link. And thus we should read it very carefully. As I'm the starter, so to say, the appetizer, let me read out this important sentence. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. It is inevitable that the declaration constituted an important component in building the legal basis for the establishment of Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people, but it did not constitute something like a self-fulfilling prophecy. One could even argue that this was the start of a British attempt to balance its competing commitments to Jews and Arabs, which at times threatened the establishment of an Israeli state more than it facilitated it. Thus, I think the claim of Riyad al-Malki that Britain has to atone for, start of the quote, big crime Britain committed against the Palestinian people because it gave people who don't belong there something that was not theirs, end of quote, is also historically unjustified. A successful plea for coexistence and for a two-state solution does not at all look like this. This would also deny the fact that the declaration did not at all signal the start of a Jewish return to this region, nor did it start mass immigration to it. It is denying the fact that it wasn't only the declaration, but that there were also the white papers in the 20s and 30s severely limiting immigration of Jews to the Holy Land. Well, one can without any prejudice blame the Brits for leaving both the supporters of Zionism as well as the Palestinian Arab nationalists deeply disappointed and frustrated during the mandate period. But this declaration was not at all the crime is being portrayed to be by these people. I hope that I'm not stepping right in the trap I just warned to fall in, over-interpretation of the declaration. But one could even read this to be a commitment to a two-state solution. Nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. I think this part of the sentence clearly embodies one message, that there is a responsibility for both, for the existence of a Jewish homeland as well as for a self-determined future of the Palestinians. As long as both identities are not being fully recognized by either side, as long as both people do not recognize each other as indigenous people, as long as powerful groups on both sides advocate supremacy of one group above the other, as long as Israel is being seen as something like a Zionist colonial and imperialistic entity, which is totally wrong, but as long as also a Palestinian state is being seen to be a denial of the Jewish access to the promised land by some people, there will be not the slightest room for a historical compromise and for true peace in this region. Extremists on both sides have to be convinced that their positions are counterproductive. Those in the room who might not like that conclusion might fall back on the question at the beginning of my words, why in the world is that something that Germany should deal with? Let me finish with that thought, which is very dear to my heart, and I owe you an answer. Germany bears responsibility for the existence of Israel not only because of the Shoah. There is one dimension of the Balfour Declaration that is rarely been seen, especially in Germany. The fantastic late Amos Elon was pinpointing the German role in his wonderful portrait of the so-called German Jewish epoch between the middle of the 18th century and 1933, with the title The Pity of It All, by saying, the 1917 Balfour Declaration, calling for the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine, was at least partly motivated by the British government's desire to win support among pro-German Jews. End of quote. Indeed, a lot of German Jews volunteered, as you all know, to fight the British, standing side by side with its fellow Germans. The first dark clouds of the dooming anti-Semitic catastrophe in Germany during the time of the Balfour Declaration were sometimes broken by the sun rays of the hopes and desires of German Jews, not only the hope that they will be regarded equal German citizens, but also the hope of the Zionist movement that the German government is supporting it. Germany betrayed this true affirmation of the German Jews, not even 15 years later. The essence of the fact that the Balfour Declaration was so important for the Zionist movement and is nowadays so important to the people of Israel can be, after centuries of pogroms and attempts to destroy Judaism, put in one single word: reaffirmation. Reaffirmation. And this should be, in a nutshell, the lesson to be learned. The deep-rooted and understandable desire that the existence of the state of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state should be reaffirmed clearly and without the slightest doubt, always and in the future. The declaration of Angela Merkel 2008 in the Israeli Knesset that the existence of Israel is part of the German reason of state can at least, and now I'm kind of courageous, in the light of this affirmation be interpreted to be something like a Balfour Declaration 2.0, but maybe that is going too far. Anyway, at least that tiny thought experiment shows to discuss the declaration 100 years after it has been issued is maybe more important and actual than ever. I thus wish all of us a fruitful and fantastic conference. Ani menachel lachen kenes moil vi mechane. Toda rabba.